Trail with Big Chief Yellowfoot. Here's Carl Hoyt.
Thank you, Anthony. Well, this week we have a great show, a great guest here with us. I like to think of him as the former director of support service of the Greater Cleveland Council, but he's worn many hats in his career. And most recently, he's been promoted to the general manager of Philmont Scout Ranch. Roger, thanks for joining us in the here in the studio, so to speak, today. That's a great view you have behind you.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. I'm glad to be here. And yeah, that's one of our iconic climbs. It's called the Tooth of Time, 9,003 feet, Carl.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't it the Tooth of Time's birthday today?
Yeah, I think it might be. It could very well be.
I mean, every time I go to Philmont, I'm told it's the Tooth of Time's birthday by one of the rangers. So I just always expect it to be the Tooth's birthday. So.
Well, every day is a joyous celebration of the Tooth of Time's birth.
Well, it has to be.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Roger, how do you like it there so far? You've been there how long?
So I got here in January of 2019, so I've worked 15, 16 months, and northern New Mexico is just a blessed land. There's lots of sunshine. There's snow occasionally, and living on a high adventure base of 212 square miles is a wonderful place to be.
Now, do you drive a truck or do you have a Suburban?
I drive a truck.
Ooh,
yeah.
You're following the John Clark method of using a truck instead of the bourbon.
Yeah, I've got a short bed 2500 Silverado with all of the fixings, so I can get up and down these mountains.
That's awesome. But classic Philmont tan, I assume.
No, actually, it's white. We've moved to white now. So
cheaper?
Yeah, well, it is more economical, more Boy Scout thrifty, but it also reminds us when we have to wash our vehicles.
That, you know what, we may have to switch the vehicles out of Beaumont to white now.
There you
go. Because Beaumont brown, when I can't tell that the gray vehicle is actually not brown, that's an issue.
Yes, it is.
So, well, tell us about some of your favorite things that you've experienced so far.
Yeah, I'd love to take you through maybe a little pictorial of some of the experiences that I've had here at Philmont. So let me just start with the fact that I was flown over the Tooth of Time about 5 or 6 months ago. And so there's a nice aerial shot of the tooth. Again, this is something if your scouts and your venturers and your Scout BSA participants are going to come to Philmont in the future, they're going to see the Tooth of Time from base camp. And I got a chance to see it flying over in an airplane. So not only you see it in the picture behind me, but you've got it there on your screen as well. Many of you might have heard about the forest fire that happened here in 2018. It burned 35,000 acres. Now Philmont has 147,000 acres, and we also have land agreements. So our actual hiking land is 250,000 acres, but a 35,000 acre fire is a big deal. And so we spent my first 6-8 months just working on fire recovery. So you'll see a picture there of contour felling. You may not have heard of that before, but that is where you take these burned trees and you cut them down, you lay them against the slope, and it helps to keep that topsoil in place so that eventually vegetation will grow back up again and stabilize those slopes. So that's contour felling. But to give you an idea of the fire and how it swept through Philmont, you're going to see a picture next of Deer Lake Mesa. And again, I was flying over in an airplane, and what you'll see is just vast devastation all around this oasis that is Deer Lake Mesa on top of one of our mountains here. And so the future of Philmont will be to do some expeditions that actually hike through that burned out area, and then we'll camp in the little oases that have been created that were left untouched by the fire, and then we'll move through some more burned area into another one of those oases. So just to give you a feel for that.
That's awesome. That would be one of your new programs. I mean, it's still a standard trek, I'm sure, but it's that's such a new experience for those that have visited the ranch before and have done some treks. I mean, I know that every wildfire, creates, it's integral to the land to create rebirth. And, we had, I believe it was 11 crews for council contingents that wasn't able to participate that summer of the fire. I mean, we've all been praying and waiting for Philmont's, lush recovery, but it takes some time.
It does. It does take some time. There's no doubt. Over 20,000 people were really canceled out of that summer.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result, last year we had the highest attendance that we've ever had in the history of Philmont, over 24,000. But as you speak of lush, everything here is not a burned out forest, that's for sure. We have many acres of wonderful, pristine forests and mountains and great high elevation hiking. But one of the lushest places that you will see on the ranch, Carl, is the villa. And there's a picture of the villa. It's a Spanish villa. It was actually Wade Phillips' vacation home. He had built a home that is now called the Philbrook Museum. So if any of your viewers want to do a little research, they should go Google the Philbrook Museum. The Philbrook Museum was his original home in Tulsa, Oklahoma, but he made all his money in oil and was an oil man. In fact, those of you who remember Phillips 66, this is the same Phillips we're talking about, and he built this beautiful villa on the property, which was his vacation home. And then he became familiar with the Boy Scouts when he saw some troops who were in the area, invited him to hike on some of his land, and then eventually gave a small donation and enjoyed watching the Boy Scout program take effect in those troops. Now, the other piece, we're in northern New Mexico, but another piece of the villa that you would never know needs water is the courtyard. And so you can take a look at the courtyard there on the screen. Again, the courtyard, if you look real close, this is where his pool was. So it was his pool. Over the years, the pool got to a point where it couldn't be maintained anymore, and we created a lush courtyard out here so that people can reminisce and have some quiet time and reflect in a beautiful setting.
I've been out to the ranch a dozen or so times for staff meetings, for programs, for the outdoor conference in the fall, and I never had heard about the pool in the courtyard, not once, has anyone ever mentioned it. Been there a dozen times, never knew it.
Well, if you go back and you again do some research on the internet, you could Google that, and you might even be able to see Waite and his wife Genevieve hanging out by the pool when it was a pool.
So let me ask you this: when do you think it was about covered over? Because I can imagine Bill Spice swimming in it.
Well, you could imagine that, but I'm not sure that that's the case. I would have to guess it was probably the early 50s that the pool became somewhat less of a pool.
Well, okay. He didn't join the profession until late 60s, so I guess I'll have to buy that. So
there you go.
So what else you got there on your?
A lot of people think of Philmont as just hiking in the backcountry, and I'm gonna show some of those here in a second as well. Philmont is the training center for the Boy Scouts of America. So I've captured a wonderful rainbow over that part of the ranch. Of course, it ties two things together that Philmont is known for. One is the Philmont Training Center, where we run between 2,000 and 3,000 people through conferences and trainings a year. But it also represents the scenery that Philmont is known for. Such natural beauty out here every day, even in a boring day. A sunrise or a sunset is just masterful. So we're glad to have that scenery. And speaking of sunsets, I think that might be up next. Is just a beautiful Philmont sunset that we have out here. The high desert environment that we're in creates a situation where between the clouds, the mountains, the moisture, the storms that move through, it's just paints a wonderful canvas, and then that sunlight or even the moonlight out here, adds that added dimension to just the wonderful scenery that we have. But that scenery also includes a lot of animals and wildlife. And so one of the things I wanted to show you, I walked out my garage door, and standing there looking at me was this trophy mule deer who I'm not a big hunter. I've done some hunting, but it's an irregular rack on this guy. And I got to watch him over the next umpteen months come through the yard and hang out and eat in the fields near the house. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, lots to see here.
So one of my favorite experiences out at Philmont, we were your predecessor and I, before he worked at Kevin Dowling, before he was GM out at Philmont, when he was my boss at Northern Tier. We were coming back from one end of Colfax County, and all of a sudden we're surrounded by elk, and not like 2 or 3 of them, but 100 elk.
Yeah.
We're in this big rental pickup truck, and we're poking our heads out. Kevin's honking the horn, flashing his lights. They're not moving. They're snorting at us, and it's probably about 11:30 midnight. And this is before we had iPhones. It's when we had our old Blackberries, and both of us still today, when we talk about wildlife, that's the thing that I remember most about my experiences at Philmont was seeing the elk. But having a mule deer right outside that you kind of like became your pet, that has to be an awesome. I mean, where else do you get to do that? Especially in your career. I mean, this is such a great opportunity for you.
Yeah, there's experiences. The animals encounters out here are significant. They really are. And the list of whether it's mule deer, we have a limited population, but white-tailed deer, there's about 100 mule deer that just kind of hang around base camp. Of course, we're also a ranch, a working ranch, and we'll talk a little bit about that here in a second too. But when I'm in the backcountry, between the scenery and during the summer, the program, the scenery, and the wildlife all come together and make this such a special place. So, so let me talk a little bit about the backcountry. I think we got a picture next of a campfire at Crater Lake. And so I'd be remiss, we've talked about a lot of things at Philmont already, but we have 35 backcountry camps that our hikers go to. And so they'll hike for anywhere between 4, 6, 8, sometimes 12 miles a day. And then they'll get into these backcountry staff camps, and there's program. 8 or 9 of them will have a campfire, or some of them have ghost stories. Others have Western themes, so it's a cowboy campfire or an outlaw campfire. We have old mining towns. We have settlement towns. We have fur and trapping towns. So Philmont represents kind of the best of what the West was like, what the frontier life was like. And when you come out here and hike, you become immersed in that. And at the end of a long day where you've put 8 or 10 miles on the boots, it's wonderful to sit back and enjoy that campfire, have some of our staff do an hour or 2 worth of songs and skits and different types of entertainment while you relax and prepare for the next day and just enjoy the beauty of Philmont. I told you, I mentioned mining. I think there's another picture that we have up there of a miner, one of our roving prospectors, who met me on the trail, took me down to the stream, and we're panning for some gold. And so we have 2 roving prospectors on the property. They run around with 2 of our burros, and they run into crews on the trail, get them down to a stream, and then teach them how to pan for gold. So lots of fun there.
Did you get any gold that day?
Well, if I had been panning for gold, no. But because he was panning for gold, we found several flakes of gold in that pan. Absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah. So you talked about what a great gift it has been to be out here. It really has been. And so one of the things I love to do is hike. I'm an avid hiker. In fact, over Easter weekend, I hiked 30 miles out here myself in the backcountry. I love to go hiking during the summer and run into crews. And I think the next shot you have is of me on an early morning. Went out, and it's one of those phenomenons you love to have where you've hiked above the clouds. You can look down on the clouds and you can look across and see the summit of a beautiful mountain range. So that's one of the things I love to do out here.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah. So I'll share with you a couple other things, and then certainly any other questions you might have. But one of them involved a hike that I was on Saturday, and I'd hiked up to the Tooth Ridge and across the Tooth Time and down the Tooth, and we were heading back to the cars, and lo and behold, I saw my first bear out here on Saturday. So
until last Saturday.
Well, I've seen pictures of bears running through base camp, or you hear the stories. The scouts who were out here, we had like 100 bear sightings by scouts. In fact, Philmont averages one bear per square mile, or about 200 bears on the property. But they are very elusive, and especially when no one's here. So I was able to see my first bear. I think that's up on the screen. It's not a great picture because I had to enlarge it with my cell phone, but that is my bear sighting. So, and before I turn it over to questions, there's one more thing I'd love to share with you. And Carl, if you ever get out here while we're either branding cattle or moving horses, you just have to see it. But I sent in a video. We are a working ranch. We have 150 bison. By the time we get through the birthing cycle on our buffalo this year, we'll have over 200 buffalo on the ranch. We have about 250 head of horses. We have almost 450 head of cattle. We have 200 burros. So we have a livestock department. I have cowboys who are on my staff. When I was a scout executive, I never had a cowboy. But I've got.
How did you live without a cowboy?
I've got 3 cowboys on my staff here, and they do a great job of wrangling. But what they did last year, I think it was about April or May, is they had to move the horses from the North Country down into the pastures here in the South Country, where they then shoe them and get them ready for trail rides. So it'll be about a minute or so long, but I just wanted to share with you that experience that I had of watching the horses run through Cimarron.
Anthony, let's see it.
Running the horses through Cimarron to the ranch. Here comes the lollygaggers. That last horse at the very back there, we call that one Roger. Sometimes they call it Roger Bradley when he's in trouble. Way to go, Cowboys!
So it's not an experience a lot of people get to have. So I wanted to share that with you and your viewers today.
Roger, thank you. There's so many things that go on out at our high adventure base, and especially the ranch, that, when you go out as a... Am I back?
You're back. Sorry, Carl.
Oh, no. So as I was... we sometimes have technical difficulties here on the trail with Big Chiefs. This is even with all the expense we pay to get this kind of broadcast television, there's still some issues from time to time.
Yes.
But as we go forward, what was I thinking? There's so many things that happen out at the ranch that we just don't get to see, especially if you're a participant or you're at the PTC. There's so many things from the working part of the ranch to even packing the trail food. there's so many things that we just take for granted as participants out there that, you being able to show us a little glimpse behind the curtain we appreciate it so much.
Yes, and Carl, we do a really good job here of giving people updates, whether we've had a snowstorm in the mountains or whether we happen to be doing something with the livestock. And so I just encourage, all of your viewers to go and Philmont Scout Ranch and like our page, and they'll be able to get even more insight than I've given today on ranch operations.
Awesome. Anthony, you're going to have to put that up on our social media channels for us. Let's get that out to the Lake Erie Council fans.
We'll get that. We'll get that up there for you, Carl.
I appreciate it. So what else? Anything else you want to, before I start hitting some hard-hitting expose questions for you?
Well, I just quickly like to say, my wife and I loved our time in the Cleveland. It was Greater Cleveland Council at the time, and then did some merging and some restructuring and became Lake Erie. But we loved our time there. Lived in Strongsville and Middleburg Heights. Spent a lot of time in Rocky River. Spent a lot of time in the park system, the Emerald Necklace there, and
we have such a great metro parks.
Yeah, and also very much enjoyed our time at Camp Beaumont. Just nothing but great memories for the Wilderness Engineers Weekend and a lot of the things. One of the last projects that I had at camp was building that council ring out on the lake, and I just remember that being such a beautiful sight. But I'm so glad that you picked up the baton and have carried it on, so well for the years that you've been there. And Beaumont's just a special place, and we certainly do miss our time in Cleveland.
Well, anytime you want to come back, we have family cabins out of Beaumont. We'll put you up.
Well, there may be a chance that I'll be coming out in September, and if that's the case, I'd love to spend some time with you.
We'd love that.
Yeah.
I still have your checkout manual. Yeah. So yours and Pat Craven's, and I have some things from it's historical documents. I got to keep hold of them.
There you go.
So,
well, I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have.
So if a scout wanted to work on staffs this summer, are you guys still hiring?
We have 1,200, 1,300 positions that we fill every summer. Believe it or not, this year we have over 2,000 applications for those. I guess it's a total of about 1,400 positions, and so we're in pretty good shape right now for the summer. But we would encourage anyone over the age of 18 to apply for our camp staff in any given year. Even if there's not a position available this year, it would get you in the queue and remind us when you apply next year that you really wanted a job in 2020.
Awesome. What's your favorite trek? If you got put on the spot and said, Roger, what's the number one trek my crew can select? What would you say?
Boy, I'll tell you. So let me rephrase that question. I got asked a lot, what was my favorite backcountry camp?
Oh.
And it's still the last one I've been to. They're all amazing. But here's what I'll tell you about treks, right? You can pick a track where you go to all the camps that have a campfire.
Mm-hmm.
You can pick a track where all the camps have music. Or you can pick a track where every camp you go to is a shooting sports. Or you can do a mix and match. Our trek that's number one is a track where you only track maybe 40 miles or so, 40 or 50 miles. Our track that's number 36, you'll go over 100 miles. So, the thing about trying to narrow that down is, what do you like? What do you like? And I like so much of it, I can't pick just one, Carl.
That's fair. I mean, when you get the golf cart trek, though, call me because I'm there. Anthony and we'll play through on that one.
Well, Carl, we do have Zastro, which is a camp that's about ATVs and getting your ATV license and then going out and using the ATVs. So
that's awesome.
Yep.
I might have to think about that. Anthony put it on my calendar. We might have to go film live from the ranch.
And Carl, we have cavalcades too, which is
no horse wants this up on it.
Okay, all right. Well,
I mean, do you got some Clydesdales back there I don't know about?
The horses are pretty sturdy.
So am I.
Fair enough.
So thank you so much for taking some time. I know ramping up for summer, you have to be busy, and we appreciate it so much. So much so that as a little thank you for spending some time with us today. On behalf of Lake Erie Council, we'd like to honor a scout this summer in your name with a campership to Beaumont Scout Reservation.
Outstanding. That's awesome. Thank you, Carl. I appreciate that so much.
No problem. So, this is we usually spend about half an hour here. You've showed us so much. Thank you for coming out today. Now I have to figure out how to top, the general manager of Philmont. I don't know if I can. I might have to shut the show down.
There's so many exciting things in scouting. Kudos to you and Anthony and your entire team who does this and really keeps scouters engaged from across your council and from across the country. I tuned in Friday night and they were highlighting what you were going to do this next week. And there were questions like, well, do I have to be part of the council? So you guys, the men and women of the Lake Erie Council are touching multiple lives across the country. And kudos to you for that, Carl.
Well, we appreciate it. On behalf of Mark Ryan, our scout executive, our board, we have a mission to serve scouts no matter where they're at. So just like you, we're here for the movement. Anthony, do we have a question?
We have, as Roger was saying, we had multiple viewers from across the country. We do have a comment. We got some viewers all the way from Peru, and they say hello to Roger and Carl. So that's pretty exciting. And then Chris Don Friswald and CJ Nussbaum and the Wolf family all want to say hi to Roger as well.
See, I told you, Roger, you had fans here. So.
Yes. So I am looking forward. Tentatively, I'm going to attend a retirement gathering of professional scouters in September, and I will make it a point to get by the office and see all of those you just named, Anthony, and hopefully a whole lot more of my friends back in the Cleveland area.
Well, we look forward to seeing you and hosting you, and we'll have to ship out some Scout's Own maple syrup and some pancake mix for you and the family to enjoy on a brisk Philmont day. So
would love it.
So, well, thanks for joining us, Mr. Hoyt. We appreciate it so much. Anthony, we'll be back again next week, I assume, if you haven't canceled my slot.
Carl, from now until the end of time, you're back.
Ooh, that's a big thing right there. Well, thank you so much, viewers, for tuning in. Thank you to our special guest, Roger Hoyt, General Manager of Philmont Scout Ranch. And thank you to all the viewers of joining us and taking a chance one more time for On the Trail with Big Chief. Until I see you out at camp or on the trail, happy scouting.